Let's take a nice deep breath of Shabbat air. We breathe in everything that we want to hold on to, all those moments, the nice days this week, the beautiful day today. Get rid of all that bad stuff, traffic and shopping and all that stuff we can get rid of. Whatever your choice, maybe you like shopping. One more time. It's really wonderful to be together. I heard from a Reconstructionist colleague, she said that she was taught never say welcome, because when you welcome, it assumes that you're guest to the space. But the truth is we are all part of this space. Each and every one of us makes a difference in coming here. Each of us adds our breath, our knowledge, everything that we are to make this service who we are, what it is, and make this room. Without you, it's just an empty room, a beautiful sanctuary, but an empty room. We're really glad tonight to have Harvey here. Harvey has a cheering section over here. Harvey stepped in. Cantor is back. She was away in Florida. Many of you probably saw beautiful pictures. Her daughter is getting married and she's getting ready for that. She came back like so many of us do, and she was not feeling well. So she's on a recovery. It's unfortunate the way of the world today. Our immunity isn't really built up. So as soon as you go out and travel, that's sometimes what happens. So Harvey stepped in last minute, and this is the very first time that Nick and Harvey are leading together. So that's very exciting for me personally.
It's exciting for us.
Yes, it was very exciting. They went over things, and this is a part of the development as Nick becomes more and more part of our community. Pretty soon you'll know everyone's voice here. Let's invite Bruce over here to do the welcome.
I can't do a welcome.
Oh yeah. No, do a welcome. Oh yeah, you can't say welcome. You're right. Sorry, I'm contradicting myself.
He's taking away my shtick. What can I do? Shabbat shalom, everyone. So if I can't say welcome because we're all part of this space, then okay, we're all part of. Okay, Carol, it's your week to dust. Howard, you have to vacuum. We'll make it all. We'll be right at home in this place. Anyway, it's good to see everyone. It's nice to have nice weather. We didn't have to worry about snow or rain or ice in the parking lot. What a nice treat that was. And Nick, one thing about Harvey, he's a few octaves lower than what you're used to.
Nick knows.
I'm sure. And Reverend Bill Hennessy is with us tonight. And it's not the weekend before Thanksgiving for a pulpit exchange. What a nice treat to have a second one this year. So it's a good night to be together. And we have a lot of stuff coming up in the coming weeks. We have a big holiday coming up. And we have Shabbat coming up. We have important stuff coming up. So I'll be back a little later with the announcements. And in the meantime, let's get going with the service.
I'm so sorry, Bruce. I took away your opening there. All right, we're going to begin with Shalom Aleichem, where we welcome in the angels of Shabbat. And I believe it's on 628. Is that right, Harvey?
627.
627.
Bit of introduction. Nick and I have been scurrying to get this act together since Wednesday at lunchtime. As you know, the cantor, I think, is a soprano. I'm not a soprano. All the music is written for soprano. So we decided if it's something the congregation probably does not know, I would sing a cappella. If it's something the congregation does know, Nick will accompany, and when I can't reach the notes, I'll just mouth it, and you'll keep it going. That should work. So we're going to start with Shalom Aleichem. Those of you who are interested in the Cantor's Monday emails will remember this from March 13th. It's Sal Zim's Shalom Aleichem.
Oh, wonderful. It's well worth looking at the video on that as well.
And it goes like this. Please join me when you catch on to the melody. Maybe you already know it. La 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 la. La 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 la. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mimelech, Malchei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mimelech, Malchei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. La 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 la. Barchuni l'shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mimelech, malchei hamelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeitchem l'shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mimelech, malchei hamelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. La 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 la. La 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 la. If you want to hear how it's supposed to sound, listen to the video. You'll see Salzim dancing with all the theatrical gestures, and he's accompanied by a full orchestra. It starts off with a timpani. It's worth listening to.
Yeah, and I think it's from the early 70s. So Saul is very young during the video, which I really love seeing that. Saul Zim, who wrote a lot of the melodies in the Jewish world, and who Cantor actually trained under. But the cool thing about that melody is when I was in New York, we used to do that in Orthodox settings, but we would do it 3 different times. There was a tradition of each verse doing it 3 times. So you get...
Oi.
Yeah, oi, all right. So before we do our candle lighting, I got a wonderful poem from Andy Schneider today. And he said he wrote this in spin class. It's beautiful and perfect for the beginning of Shabbat, if it's okay. It's called Waltzing. Glistening silver they served, wanting each morning to turn again. Mounted minions labored, then told to leave. Fred Astaire waltzes with all, crossing the river floor to daily exile, dreaming of spinning, awakening another dance. Welcoming, joyous minions arrive and toil, then wandering again, dreaming of their Jerusalem. He was having these wonderful an epiphany during spin class. I love that. So we're going to light our candles. We're going to turn to page 120. I'd like to invite over Karen and Howard Weissman. They are also, I believe, the sponsors of our Oneg afterwards in honor of Karen's birthday, and it was Howard's mother's yard site, is it?
My mother's and her father's.
Your father's, okay. So 2.
There's 2. I didn't know until I saw it on the program.
Oh. Well, what a wonderful thing to light candles then. That's very appropriate. So 120.
Okay, yeah, we'll get it there.
Hopefully we gave you some matches.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'hadlikner shel Shabbat.
Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with his both commanding us
Amen. If you want to lift up the Kiddush cup, I'll turn it over to Harvey to lead us on page 123.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lemaaseh v'reshit ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh zecher litziat Mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta v'yotanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha b'ahava u'v'ratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai
Baruch Shemo.
Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen. L'chaim, to life. And how special to have this Kiddush, because this is the beginning of the month of Nisan, where we celebrate our freedom, and also the beginning of Ramadan this week as well. We're going to continue on page 138 with L'chadodi. We'll sing the first and the last verse. On the last verse, we rise, we face the doorway there, we bow to the Shabbat bride as she enters, and then we welcome each other by waving.
Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, b'nei b'nei Shabbat mekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, b'nei b'nei Shabbat mekabela. La 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 la. Lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, b'nei b'nei Shabbat mekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, b'nei b'nei Shabbat mekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmianu el hamyuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shemu l'tiferet v'litila la 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 l'chadoti, Likrat likrat kala, B'nei b'nei Shabbat mekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, B'nei b'nei Shabbat mekabela la la. Dodi, likrat dodi, likrat likrat kala, mekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, B'nei b'nei Shabbat mekabela. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, Gam besimcha u'v'tzohla, toch emunei am segula. Boi chala, lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, b'nei b'nei Shabbat mekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, b'nei b'nei Shabbat mekabela. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la.
And we remain standing. I'm gonna invite my friend Naomi to come up here to open the first part of our ark for the Baruch Hu, our call to prayer. Page 146, this is our call of community. And just open the gates.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברכו את אדוני המבורך. La 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 la. Lai 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 lai. Barechu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach le'olam va'ed.
We remain standing and let's read together 149 on the bottom. This is an hour of change. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. Page 150, Ahavat Olam, an everlasting love we have for God.
Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amecha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot Chokim u'mishpatim Otanu limadta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shachbeinu u'vekumeinu nasiach b'chukecha ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגה יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל.
Page 152.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Me'olam.
You may be seated, page 154. As I know we have some newcomers here in our group, we cover our eyes on the Shema often to really concentrate on it. And the second line of the Shema is often done in a whisper because it doesn't appear in the Torah. So if you hear those customs, that's what you're hearing. Page 154.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך. ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך. וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך. וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם Asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem.
Let's turn to page 157 on the bottom, and we'll read responsibly. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. Page 158, the Song of the Sea, Mi Chamocha.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh. Nora tehilot osei fele, nora tehilot osei fele. Malchutecha ra'u vanecha, Bokei hayam, lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, ze Eli anu v'yamaru, Adonai yimloch, Adonai yimloch, le'olam eva'ed. V'ne'emar kifada Adonai et Yaakov, u'ga'alo miyad chazak mimenu, Baruch ata Adonai, ga'al Yisrael.
Blessed are you, God, who redeems us from tight spaces, allowing ourselves to find freedom even when we least expected it. We turn to page 164. I invite you to rise. We're going to continue with our silent Amida from 164 to 180. Whenever you're finished with your own private prayers, you may be seated.
Ose shalom bimramav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, amen. Ose shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael.
We're going to turn to our healing blessing on page 371, the Mishaberach. I'm going to read the list we have as a community. And if you have other names that you'd like to say out loud, just raise your hand, and after I go through our list, we'll go around to the congregation. As a community, we are thinking of Marge Abelson, Richard Zyback, Paula Charvella, Dennis Epstein, Murray Edinger, Sue Frank, Ellen Frankie, Ida Frost, Freda Goodstein, Esther Green, Karen and Gary Greenfield, Carolyn and Esther Grosser, Ruth Lansing, Miles Levy, Savannah Lucas, Megan McEvoy, Jill Shire Monahan, Karen Rosenfeld, Cheryl Rossi, Brandon Ryan, Gertrude Sloan, Alan Strauss, Jill Tirabassi, Robin Weinstein, Mike Wheeler, Colette Zappia, Yocheved Bat Esther, Miriam Bat Razel, Avram Ben Rivka, Chana Ezra Ben Shul, and Ruvain Ben Morris. If you have other names, just raise your hand.
Nicholas Tepper, Marsha Tepper, and Roy Rose. Kathy Morgan Hagan and Vicky Jazarowski.
Mark Polikoff.
Anna Applewhite. Lisa Steinfeld.
We bring all those names into our hearts as we sing the Mishaberach, 371.
Misheberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha la'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
May our prayers go out to those in need, and may they find comfort and strength in our prayers for them. So, about a decade ago, someone came knocking on the door of Shir Shalom. We had just opened for business as officially Shir Shalom. My office was still all the way down in the open area over there in the music room. And I got a call from one of our neighbors. It was about a serious issue that we had to contemplate as a community. And it was a difficult conversation. But out of that conversation came a friendship. I'd like to invite up my good friend Bill Hennessy, who our friendship not only, and why don't you come over here to Harvey's podium there. Our friendship not only was important in our lives, our families as well, but in our communities. It was really served the purpose of bringing our communities, our neighboring communities together. So tonight we're going to have a conversation about the golden rule, the most important line in religion, which is to love your neighbor as yourself. we're going to share our perspective. Our perspective is a Jewish community and the perspective of the Christian community as well, in terms of what this line means. But first, why don't we have a conversation? What does it mean to be a neighbor? We talked about this in our class last week.
Yeah.
Who do you think is a neighbor? Is it our next door neighbor, the church over there? Is it down the block? Is it the entire Williamsville, Amherst, Clarence? Are we all neighbors here? What do you think?
Well, yeah, I think that expanding the definition of that is a real challenge. I mean, we think normally of our neighbors as the people who live closest to us, the people who maybe look like us or think like us or hold the same set of cultural norms that we do. But we're learning more and more that neighbors are all around us, and we have to expand that definition more and more to encompass different cultures, different folks from all walks of life. And it's a real challenge, I think, for really for all of us. I know I grew up in a very small town in southern Illinois, a place where my parents were both born there, and I grew up, in fact, in the house that was built by my great-great-grandfather, where my mom still lives. And so our roots were very, very deep, but we were all, in that community pretty much the same. So I didn't grow up with a lot of experience of different cultures, different ways of looking at the world. So it was a real experience for me to leave home, go to college, go to seminary, and to the various congregations where I've pastored, to expand my understanding of what it means to have friendships and to develop these kinds of relationships with others.
Well, it's interesting because I grew up kind of in the opposite. My journey is sort of the opposite, where I grew up in the city with stoops, and the neighbors were a lot of neighbors, and they definitely didn't look like me, most of them. And it was very chaotic, and there was a lot of noise and people running around, and everyone raised each other's kids. I know a lot of people probably grew up with that. We just ran around the neighborhood, and it was free. It was as far as you could go. That was the neighborhood, basically. And then I came here to Amherst and discovered a much quieter neighborhood, where sometimes you walk out, and I happen to live on a wonderful street where neighbors really get along. We found that out during the blizzard this year, where people went out of their way, like so many of us. We saw how much that was needed, but it's definitely quiet. It took me a while to get used to it. Is this a dead town? It's a completely different type of experience in that, but finding a way, and that's part of the challenge probably too, is because what we expect of our neighbor is very different. When I was growing up, we'd expect our neighbor to tell us like it was, and they would. Here, you expect your neighbor to be cordial and make sure that that if they see something to tell you, but it's a little different type of experience.
Yeah.
What do you think is the difference? Because the verse, love your neighbor as yourself. Why not it could have said anything. It could have said friend.
Sure.
It could have said country person. It could have said community member.
Yeah.
What is it about neighbor in that verse that changes it?
Well, I think for me, it's a vague enough term that it can really be sort of all inclusive, and in our tradition, that it all kind of hangs on that definition. What is the neighbor? And one of the stories in one of our Gospels, a man comes to Jesus and asks, what do I need to do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus says, well, what do the commandments tell you? And he says, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus says, well, great, do that, and you'll live. And the man says, well, but who's my neighbor? And so Jesus tells a parable about a man who was making his way from Jericho to Jerusalem, or rather from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he is set upon by bandits and beaten up, robbed, and left for dead. And along that same road comes a priest who comes by and sees the man and continues on, walks on the other side of the road. And then a Levite comes by, sees the man, and walks on the other side of the road. And then a person comes along who is a Samaritan. And the Samaritan sees the man and has compassion for him and cares for him, binds his wounds, puts him on his own animal, takes him to the next town, gives him lodging, and ensures that he's taken care of. And then Jesus says to the man, "So, who was the neighbor?" And the man says, "Well, the one who had compassion on him." And Jesus says, "Well, then go and do likewise." So, in that story is I guess, counterintuitive. And as I've come to learn through the writings of Amy Jill Levine, that the expectation for the audience would be a priest would come along, a Levite would come along, then an Israelite would come along, a real person. And to substitute in the Samaritan forces that audience to think more broadly about the neighbor and to think differently about the relationships that they have with people who are unlike themselves.
Well, a neighbor, first of all, I love that story, and actually Harvey appreciates, because in our Talmud study just this past week, we were looking at what I think it was a couple weeks ago, we were looking at that case. The priest goes, if they see a dead body, they have to bury it, even if it makes them, there's two designations of priests they were wondering about, by the way. They were wondering about the vice priest, the person that would take over when the high priest was not able to do the duties, and the priest in charge of the war. So the question is, are they allowed to become unholy? So and even there, they have to, if some, in the story, these priests were completely violating their vows.
Well, this is what Amy Jill points out, is that the people listening to this story would recognize, that priest and that Levite aren't doing what they're supposed to do. And so they anticipate a common person, like one of themselves, and it turns out to be someone entirely different.
Yeah, I love that. I also love the neighbor is the person next to you. They're not living together, they're walking next to each other. They see each other on the road. You become a neighbor. When you go into an elevator, you have neighbors. These are new neighbors. Yeah. It's a wonderful way of thinking, expanding. The rabbis have a lot of trouble actually with the verse, because it's impossible to make into a law. How can you enforce love? How can you love even above yourself, or the same as yourself? There's no way. What does that mean exactly? And they would talk about practical terms about how do we do it? Just like that, you take care of them. If their animal is led astray, you go and get their animal. That's the way that we show love, not romantic love, but love for our fellow human beings. You were talking about the different types of love that they have among the Greeks, right?
In Greek language, there are different forms of love. There's erotic or romantic love, and then there's friendship, and then there's agape, which is this sort of selfless love that looks after the other, even at one's own expense, even at the cost of whatever it is that you hold dear.
So Hillel, who lived at the same time as Jesus, Hillel the Elder, he has a story about the golden rule, but it doesn't include the golden rule, right? You have a non-Jew who is coming first to Shammai, who is the person, Hillel and Shammai, they were always arguing with one another, if you know the tradition. And he goes to Shammai and says, "Teach me all of Torah on one foot." And Shammai takes his ruler and chases him out of the place. "Get out of here! What are you doing? I can't teach you all of Torah on one foot." does the same to Hillel, and Hillel doesn't say the golden rule. He says, "Do not do unto others," basically the inverse, what you do not want done to you, which is brilliant because that is something you can do. If you don't like something, like I was describing in our class, when our kids annoy one another, you certainly know what's going to bother, what bothers you. Just not doing that, that is something is possible to do. Loving, that's a whole other thing. We can't enforce that. I could tell our kids, please don't annoy each other. But to tell them, to have affection, all that, we want that for siblings, but to tell that to another, you can't really do that. That was the interesting thing, is that it was a message to this person who was expecting the impossible, that would you want that done to you? He's basically throwing it back at that person. But it's also, this is something that's possible. If you just kind of stay in your lane and you do things in a way that you would want done to you and that you wouldn't want others to do to you, you'll probably be all right. So I think it's kind of brilliant. What does Jesus have? Is there a similar feeling in Christianity of discomfort with how challenging the law is?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. When we look at the Beatitudes, which is this set of sayings that Jesus has, love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you, and do not do, basically, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, which is the more sort of traditional form of the golden rule, I guess. And that's always considered, looked at as sort of this high standard that, how do we ever achieve that? But I think it is a lifelong discipline, and one that, we're called to this constant mindfulness in how we regard one another, and constantly sort of looking at and examining our own motivations. And I think it's important that the commandment is love your neighbor, not tolerate your neighbor. Not it's not a thing that you do grudgingly, and learning to love is that's a lifelong commitment that we're constantly having to work toward.
Yeah, it is really hard. I mean, I think this year in Buffalo, I felt it so much, the need for this and how far we are away from the ideal. Today we had an event down at the Buffalo History Museum sponsored by Niagara University. It was Lamentations on 514. And what I saw there was the anger and the hurt and just the bereftness. We're not quite at the year mark, but just at how could this happen? How do we create a community where what's on Jefferson Avenue is as close to us, even if we live here in the suburbs? We need to feel we are all neighbors in this, because if we are all neighbors and we all love each other, we wouldn't let one part of our neighborhood be in disrepair. We would fix the entire neighborhood. We wouldn't let one population not have the same rights and the same opportunities as another population. That would not be a neighborly thing to do. And as good as we are as neighbors, I think the experience of what happened showed that we do have a city of good neighbors. People did show up on 515. They were there. They have been there. They have been trying to make this better. We're still far from that ideal, though. Yeah. When it becomes that ideal, we will feel like this is all one. There is no difference once you cross over the city line. So I guess we could take a question or two if anyone had any questions they wanted to ask, since you have both of us. Yeah, Paul.
Refresh my memory about why the Samaritan?
Oh, well, Jesus doesn't explain that, but I think probably because there was animosity between Jews and Samaritans in that, part of the world at that time. And so, that the Samaritans become in the Gospels sort of the foil that is often used as a contrast. And sometimes in Jesus' stories, sometimes in stories about Jesus.
Yeah, they were the hated, the Samaritans.
Yeah, yeah.
Any other questions?
But very close cousins.
Neighbors.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Karen.
What are some ways we in the suburbs can demonstrate our desire to be neighbors with our friends down on Jefferson? I know we shop there at the Tops. What else could we do?
So Karen's question, how can we be better neighbors with our friends down in Jefferson? I think it's just that. All the studies show is proximity. I think the statistic that came out to me about Buffalo, because Buffalo is wonderful and awful and all these things like any place. There's so many things that we do right and so many things, unfortunately, we have to still work on. And that's normal. There is look at Israel right now. There's no perfect society out there. But I think that all the studies show that the more proximity, and what they said, and what I learned in Israel as well, is that in terms of relations, 90% of the time, a black and a white don't have a meaningful interaction on a daily basis. So I think that our worlds are divided. The more that we can see each other connecting, the more that we can go to Tops on Jefferson Avenue, and that people that live there can come here. The more that we can interact, and kind of the barrier, we didn't create these barriers. Mm-hmm. The barriers between neighbors are the fences that are built aren't necessarily there for bad reasons, but we need to kind of fight through the invisible barriers. We don't see these barriers. They're invisible. And
developing relationships, I think, really is the key, and finding ways to interact with folks that aren't just transactional, which is often the only interaction folks may have with one another, a store clerk or a bank teller or whatever, but developing other kinds of relationships and friendships.
Yeah, and I know that both of our institutions are committed to that, and that, we'll just keep going. It's hard. There's a lot of neighbors out there. We'll keep meeting them and opening our health. And, I love that also Shir Shalom and North Presbyterian, people come in. We have neighbors here within our community, people that don't know each other. Our religious spaces are places where neighbors meet one another, and that's really, really important. We'll continue the discussion on Sunday at 10:15.
Right, Sunday morning, 10:15, and this Sunday we are celebrating Mr. Rogers. Fred Rogers was a Presbyterian minister. He was an ordained Presbyterian minister. So our denomination has Mr. Rogers Sunday every year near his birthday, which was actually last Sunday. But this Sunday we're going to commemorate it because, who better to think of when we're talking about neighbors than Mr. Rogers. So everyone's invited to wear a cardigan and tennis shoes to church.
That is so wonderful. A lot of our community hasn't actually been there. Go if you are able to go. Not necessarily this week, or if you're not available, but come on a different week. It's a very friendly group. I think the more that we're in each other's spaces, it really does help a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'll invite Reverend Hennessy. You can take a seat, and I'm going to invite Miss Harvey to come up over here. I always want to call him Mr. Horowitz like we do for the kids. And we're ready for you, Naomi, again, to actually open our curtains. We're going to turn to page 586 for Aleinu. Invite you to rise. It's not enough for us just to pray. We need to go out and take our values and put them into the world. So, we're ready for you.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Page 591.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. We're going to turn to our Mourner's Kaddish on page 598. And, let's see. All right, so first of all, we had a terrible loss in our community, 16-year-old. He died in California, but will be buried here. Cameron Stokes. So please just think about him, a sweet young man. We're also thinking about Harvey Axelrod, Glorine Curtis, Mikhail Levin, Dick Meltzer, Paul Nemser, Evelyn New, and Jean Peck, who died in the last month. On our yard site list from years past, I just want to also recognize Doris Epstein. We have her family here on the 1-year anniversary. We're thinking about you. We know how hard that is. We're also remembering G. Bernard Arowitz, Mark Bagnitsky, Solomon Barden, Donald Barish, Pauline Bash, Thomas Bergman Sr., William Kamen, Bessie Fry Cohen, Harold Corris, Nancy E. Messina Engel, Sylvia Gaben, Yuri Gagner, Robert G. Giddon, Reverend Emmanuel Gordon, Rebecca Greenberg, Eleanor Hanan, Benjamin Heller, Miriam G. Horowitz, Fanny Eisenberg, Stephen Janis, Henry Jaffe, Harriet A. Kantrowitz, Bina Kaufman, Donna Kleizak, Charles Lemansky, Isadora Liebenskin, Edgar R. Lyons, Alice Ziskin Morrison, Jane Ovid, Rose Pick, Frida Rakes, David Rosikoff, Rosa Rothstein, Stuart J. Singer, Isadore Snitzer, Jack Sperling, Rebecca Schultz, Stanley Taubin, Warren Tepper, Lily Weiner, Abraham L. Weinstein, and Melody J. Wolf. We'll go around, and if you have other names, please just raise your hand.
Elaine Barron and Seymour Barron.
We take all of those names, and we're gonna, those of you whose custom it is to rise, again, page 598. Yitgadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, V'alma, Divrach, Urete, V'yamlik, Malchute, V'chayechon, V'yomechon, V'chayedecho, Beit Yisrael, V'agalav, V'yizman, Kariv, Yimru, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah, Mevorach, Le'olam Olomeo Maya. Yitbarak, V'yishtabak, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitromam, V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, V'yitalev, V'yitalal, Shemei Dekudashah.
Barichu.
Le'la min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechamata, Damiram Bialma Vimru Amen.
Amen.
Yehi Shlamar Amin Shemaya. Chaim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael Vimru Amen.
Amen.
O says Shalom Bimramav. Huya says Shalom. Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel Vimru Amen. May the one who creates harmony and high bring peace to us, to all Israel, to all the world, and we say Amen.
Amen.
May their memories be for a blessing. You may be seated. Zikronam Livracha. I'd like to invite Bruce Chorus up again to not do the welcome, but to give the announcements.
At the end of this is where I say you could leave now. So it's the anti-welcome. Shabbat Shalom. Good to see everyone tonight. Thank you again to Reverend Bill Hennessy for really interesting conversation tonight. And you guys referenced May 14th, and I think that was a day that we all kind of realized that we have neighbors down on Jefferson Avenue and in the east side of Buffalo that we don't think about, but they are our neighbors. And everything that's come out since then about how segregated Buffalo is something that a lot of people didn't realize. And we do need to think about that a lot. And that was a really interesting conversation tonight. And as they said, it will continue Sunday morning at 10:15 over at North Presbyterian Church. And also, are you back at their Wednesday morning for your class? Yes. Back at the church. Okay, the Love Your Neighbors as Yourselves multi-faith perspective class conversation will continue. Rabbi Alex and Reverend Hennessy, Wednesday morning at 11 at North Presbyterian Church. So we have a neat partnership, your church and our temple. And you and Alex have such a great friendship. It's really neat. And I was saying earlier to Reverend Hennessy, it's just odd to see him not on the Friday before Thanksgiving when we're talking about the food drive and where we do help our neighbors, where we do think about our neighbors. So anyway, really interesting evening. Thank you again to Rabbi Alex and Harvey Horowitz for filling in on short notice, and for Nick Stelzer, who had most of the night off because Harvey Horowitz was filling in for the cantor. He had a nice break tonight. But don't worry, she's back next week, and she's got stuff planned for you. And of course, thank you to Sheila Bernard Tucker, our service greeter this evening. Tomorrow morning, Torah study, which is virtual, at 9 o'clock via Zoom. The Shabbat morning service and Kiddush luncheon is 10:45 over at Temple Beth Tzedek. Tomorrow night, Winterfest, 7:30 p.m. here at Temple. You may have noticed that the social hall is all set up for it. Tickets are still available. If you want to, if you're here in the building, talk to Joanne. We can still accommodate you. Otherwise, if you're watching via the live stream, shoot her an email. We can still get your name in for the ticket. It's $10, and that doesn't come close to covering the cost of the evening. It's a very token cost for the evening. It's going to be a fun evening. That's tomorrow night at 7:30. Community Religious School and the Ganenu Preschool program will meet Sunday morning here at Congregation Shir Shalom. If you have any questions about that, please talk to Anab Simon, our religious school director. There is a special program on the media and anti-Semitism, Monday at 7 o'clock p.m. via Zoom. Sarit Katz, who is director of the Media Response Team for CAMERA, that's the Committee for Accuracy in Middle East Reporting and Analysis, will be leading a virtual discussion on the media's connection to anti-Semitism. There's a link in here. I'm not going to read it to you, but is it in the leaflet as well, Joanne? Check. There probably was in the weekly email that went out by Federation that would have it, but it's Monday night at 7. This is the big deal. This is the single most important thing that I'm going to announce tonight. Shavetas is back. We are our first of the season this Tuesday from 4 to 7 or until sold out. Of course, you can pre-order on the website to make sure that you're going to get your dinner. Have you done that? Paul, you're slacking. All right, you're going to do it. Okay. Anyway, it's the first of the year. We're going to have one in March, one in April, one in May, and then 2 in June, Joanne? 2 in June, and then 2 in July and August. So we're getting ready. Shavetas is back. The Women of Shir Shalom have a game night coming. That is Saturday, April 15th at 6:30. Bring a snack to share, bring a game to share, bring friends to share. Let Jill Hamilton know if you're coming and what, if anything, you will bring with you. I believe Julia is leading a game of 3-card Monte. Do not bet with her. Anyway, we will not be able to offer bunco this time, but that's going to be, again, at another game night in the future. We have our joint Passover second night Seder with Temple Beth Zion. That's at Transit Valley Country Club on the second night of Passover, Thursday, April 6th, 6 o'clock p.m. There are reservation forms outside the Temple office. Prices have gone up for everything this year. We've done the best we can with it. Rabbi Alex and Rabbi Gutman from TBZ have helped to subsidize it. So we've done what we can with it. We apologize for the cost of it, but it's an opportunity for us to be together. We have not had in-person Seder on the temple level in 4 years, right? Did we have one in 2019? 2019, so it's the first one in 4 years. So it's a big deal that we're able to do that. Also big deal, the Pittsburgh trip in June, definitely happening. If you're still thinking about it, please contact Nancy in the office. Lots of interesting stuff on that trip. We have lots of upcoming events coming up in the coming weeks. Some of them are listed in your service leaflet. Please take them home. If you need anything, please feel free to reach out to Joanne or myself or the rabbi or the cantor. Leave the cantor alone. She's under the weather. Or Todd, who is back in town for the Winterfest tomorrow night. So if you've saved up your list of things that you need, he'll be here tomorrow night. There are no driveways that need shoveling. But, maybe if your lawn needs an early trim or whatever. But if you need anything at all, please contact any of us, especially Todd, because he's back from Florida. We have, after the services, an Oneg Shabbat. Next, out in the hallway, it is sponsored by Karen and Howard Weisman in honor of Karen's birthday. Happy birthday, Karen. And the yortzeit of Karen's father, Leonard Grady, and Howard's mother, Thelma Weisman. Karen, is your sister watching?
No.
Oh. I can't say hi, Rita, because she's not watching. Oh, okay. Anyway, well, thank you for doing that. If any of you would like to sponsor an Oneg for any occasion whatsoever, or no occasion whatsoever, talk to Joanne. She's happy to arrange it. She will bake whatever you would like. Shabbat Shalom.
Let me add my happy birthday to Karen Wiseman. It's also Hillary Hurwitz's special birthday.
Hillary has a very big birthday today as well. Page 625, Adon Olam.
Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, Yeit Nasa, V'chefzo Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, V'yacharei Kichlot HaKol, Levado Yimloch Nora Adon Olam, V'hu Haya, V'hu Hoveh, Behu yeh betifara Adon Olam, Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, V'yeit Nasa, V'chefzo Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, V'hu Echad, V'ein Sheni, Lahamshilo Lahachbira Adon Olam, B'li Reishit, Beli tachlit, velo haoz vehamizra Adon Olam, Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, V'yeit Nasa, V'chefzo Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, V'hu Eli, V'chai Goali, V'tzur chevli b'yetzara Adon Olam, V'hu nisi umanosli, menat kosi b'yom ekra Adon Olam, Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, V'yeit Nasa, V'chefzo Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, V'yado avkid ruchi V'yet tishan v'ya'ira adon olam Ve'im ruchi geviati Adonai li v'lo ira Adon olam Adon olam
Adon olam.
Asher malach
malach.
V'terem kol
Terem kol.
Yitzir nivra V'et nasa V'chefzo kol Azai melech shemo nikra Adon olam.
That's beautiful. All right, let's invite up Hillary and Karen. You're going to hold the challah, both of you. I love that Shimnagog is a place you can come celebrate your birthdays. It's wonderful. So just to uncover our challah. The challah gets covered because it's embarrassed. It goes second on Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. And can you do happy birthday? We'll do it with Yom Huledet. Yom Huledet Sameach.
Yom Huledet Sameach, Yom Huledet Sameach, Yom Huledet Sameach, and many more.
And don't blow out the candles. As you came in peace, please leave in peace. Please return your siddur, your prayer book, to the front, minus the leaflet. Shabbat Shalom.
enough letdowns and enough wonderful surprises to know that I'm very good.
Sheridan or any busy streets, I just stay on one side of the street, and then I turn Bailey. So I'm safe. I feel safe. You have to do that with your jacket to show off. I'm uneven. Did you ever know anybody who ever wears a coat so hot out his coat? He always does that too.
Yeah, what?
He wears his jacket cock out. He wears it halfway. No, you're doing better. Oh, I think so. That was good. Oh, that was like a He is a character. What are you telling me he's a man of character? He is a character. I did not.
Not getting much else.
Okay. Okay. Right? We're all always happy. We're all.
You're close tonight. I got it turned up too.
And I love that keep up. I love that keep up. He has the most beautiful people I've ever seen. And you sent me out a cat cake.